Coming up, a special Veterans edition of Osiyo, Voices of the Cherokee People.
He is the epitome of the U.S. sailor, the epitome of the Cherokee warrior.
They call him the Patton of the Pacific, but before he rose to military fame, Admiral Jocko Clark was just a boy from Indian Territory. We look back at the life and military career of the most influential Cherokee sailor in history.
He influenced a whole cadre of naval aviators and naval officers, and that effect is still felt today.
While military men continue to be celebrated in history, we take a look back at one of the many women who contributed to the war effort.
Back then, everybody sacrificed. We all worked, prayed, cried, laughed, asked about our neighbors, the ones that was overseas in different places fighting for us.
We call her our Cherokee Rosie the Riveter, but her name is Echo Ryder, a beloved school teacher recruited to work on warplanes and in shipyards until the end of World War II. And he sacrificed his life saving others, a tribute to Master Sergeant Joshua Wheeler, a Cherokee Nation citizen and the first U.S. soldier killed combating ISIS in 2015.
The Cherokees.
A thriving American Indian tribe.
Our history.
Our culture. Our people.
Our future.
The principles of a historic nation.
Sewn into the fabric of a modern world.
Hundreds of thousands strong.
Learning. Growing.
Succeeding.
And steadfast.
In the past, we have persevered through struggle.
But the future is ours to write.
Osiyo.
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 These are the voices of the Cherokee people.
Osiyo, I'm Principal Chief Bill John Baker. Welcome to the Cherokee Nation and osiyoTV. This is how we share our culture, our heritage, our history, and our language with you. Wodo.
Osiyo, it's how we say hello in Cherokee. Welcome to the Cherokee Nation Veterans Center in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. In this episode, we pay special tribute to our Cherokee warriors who served in the U.S. military. We'll honor Master Sergeant Joshua Wheeler, who was killed in combat in 2015. And we'll learn about one woman's experience as she was recruited to help paint warplanes and ships during World War II. But first, Admiral Jocko Clark. He is the most highly decorated Cherokee Nation citizen to serve in the military, and his influence on naval aviation is still in effect today.
Joseph James Jocko Clark was an admiral in the U.S. Navy, and he had a storybook career, honestly. He is the epitome of the U.S. sailor, the epitome of the Cherokee warrior.
And being who he was, just his leadership and his determination, that got him the title Patton of the Pacific. He influenced a whole cadre of naval aviators and naval officers, and that effect is still felt today.
Admiral Clark was born in Chelsea, Indian Territory. Just like most Cherokees at the time, they're just standard farming family.
Well, he was born in 1893. He was the oldest of 10 children. Being the oldest, he was put into a leadership position quite young. But that ability to lead gave him an edge.
He would later on go to the U.S. Naval Academy at Annapolis and be the first indigenous person to actually graduate from the U.S. Naval Academy. Well, during World War I, Admiral Clark served on the USS North Carolina, which was one of those airborne ships at the time. It's at that point in time in the Atlantic and seeing these seaborne planes being catapulted off these ships that he really took the turn and wanted to go to naval aviation. He had this fascination with it, and you've got to admire a guy who will get into a field that just started and is not fully vetted, and be willing to have the intestinal fortitude to sit in that cockpit and fly a plane that might end up crashing on you.
And so he was able to secure a position in flight school in 1924, and by 1925 he became a naval aviator. Now, in the 30s, he was the only aviator on the Inspection and Survey Board, which would test out new aircraft and new ships. He was able to essentially tweak the design of aircraft and ships.
And a lot of the items that he instituted, not only on his vessels, but also in his theories as well, were actually implemented as a whole in the U.S. Navy.
Will Rogers was invited on board the USS Pennsylvania, and Jocko was assigned to take him up in an aircraft and essentially catapult him off the Pennsylvania. I can only imagine the pressure that Jocko was under to ensure that they would both come back safely from this little pony show.
Admiral Clark relates that, he and Will Rogers had, spoke over the years because they were great friends. When World War II first broke out, he became captain of his first ship, the Swanee, and afterwards he was repositioned to the Pacific Theater. It was really at this time that the thought of the aircraft carrier and all the theories that they had really hit home. That if we're going to take the fight to them, we need these mobile platforms to be able to launch bombing raids. They really stopped the Japanese in their place, and then Jocko would become the captain of the USS Yorktown, the fightingest lady of the U.S. Navy.
He took the Yorktown out, and he spearheaded the occupation of the Central and the Western Pacific Islands.
His main fixation was the Bonins, Chichijima, Iwo Jima, and Hahajima.
Without those strategic supply depots, it couldn't have been done.
He attacked that area more than any other area in the Pacific Theater, so much so that they actually called it the Jocko Jima Development Corporation. And his pilots actually made these little certificates that was worth 1 share in the Jocko Jima Development Corporation. And every pilot who made a bombing run on the Bonins was given one.
He was aggressive, and he was a demanding leader. He was extremely intimidating.
We'll never be ready for combat unless you flight deck crews learn right now to work as a team. Don't you men realize that before long we'll be in dangerous waters? Get it over to starboard! Way over to starboard!
He ran a tight ship. He expected the best out of his sailors, but he was always quick to praise.
The thing that he did to mitigate the negative effects that could come from being a very strong personality on the bridge was that he took care of his people.
He had pilots who said, we'd follow you into hell. They trusted him. He was the quintessential captain.
The military commanders that came out of the Greatest Generation certainly were of a different breed than our military commanders today. I don't think they reached the same level of celebrity as Jocko or Patton did. The press was all over promoting their successes in both Europe and the Pacific.
He later on would move over and be on the USS Hornet as well when he became an admiral, and was in charge of his own task force. And his men over there loved him just the same. And then the North Koreans invaded the South, and he went over and was put in charge of the 7th Fleet during the Korean War.
He partnered with the Army in providing carrier-based close air support of ground troops in Korea. And he was able to change how the Army and the Navy worked together.
He began doing bombing runs from the aircraft carriers behind the bombing line, and was hitting the supply trucks and supply lines and the base camps for the North Koreans and Red Chinese. These runs actually affectionately became known as the Cherokee Strikes, and that's where the Air Force saw the value of naval aviation.
Being able to attack the enemy in advance of moving ground troops, that was definitely key to getting us to a position where there would be the ceasefire of '53.
He would end up retiring after the Korean War. He was able to retire as a full 4-star admiral. The highest distinction he was given was the Navy Cross. And a lot of the strategy and theories that he implemented during World War II and the Korean War, a lot of those became the standard.
Well, there's only 2 Cherokee naval aviators that I'm aware of. That's myself and Jocko. There's a bond there.
He had such an impact not only on the Navy, but also on our people. It makes you proud to be Cherokee.
During World War II, with so many men serving overseas, women were recruited to help with the war effort. Echo Ryder left her teaching job in the Cherokee Nation to paint warplanes in Pittsburgh and ships in California. We wanted to share Echo's story with you as it's a perspective not often documented. American Indians serve in the military at a higher rate than any other ethnic group, and World War II was no exception. While some 45,000 Indians enlisted in the armed forces, another estimated 65,000 served on the home front. They worked in the wartime defense industry. Women throughout the country were heavily recruited to join the home front effort, with the now iconic Rosie the Riveter and her We Can Do It campaign leading the cause. Women left their homes to go work in factories and shipyards, constructing, welding, riveting, and painting aircraft and boats. Cherokee Nation citizen Echo Ryder was one of these real-life Rosies who left her job as a teacher in Sequoyah County, Oklahoma, to serve her country in an aircraft manufacturing plant and later in California shipyards.
I was teaching school at Russia and declared the war. I resigned my teaching position to Wichita to work in the factory up there at Bowie. Was a recruiter up there, getting people to work for the war. So that's when I signed up to go. I went to Boeing Aircraft and worked there as a painter. I painted the stars on the wings of the airplane. We had a pattern, a tin plate, spray painted. That's where I learned to spray paint. We worked 8 hours. I usually worked a swing shift, which could begin about 2 o'clock and lasted 8 hours. In the paint department, there were several women, but the spray painters, I was the only woman spray painter. Well, while I was at Wichita, my brother, Emmett, was in California. So I went out there and he was working at Moore Dry Dock. I went there and applied for work and got hired as a painter. And we worked there, and later on we looked for housing. So I bought a house for $150 down and $50 a month, a brand new house. And my brother and his family, and my mom and my sister was out there. They came out there. And that's where we lived until I transferred over to Richmond. They call it Kaiser Shipyard. I worked there until the war was over. Back then, everybody sacrificed. We all worked, prayed, cried, laughed, asked about our neighbors, the ones that was overseas in different places fighting for us at that time. We just had a job that we wanted to do, had to do, to win the war. We just all helped each other. We was concerned about our other friends and loved ones and neighbors, everyone. We cared for each other. And the victory in Japan was over. Everything closed except the emergency ones. People went in the street, in their cars, on foot. Everybody was shouting and hugging and kissing and all. Everything shut down, all the work. That was BJ Day. After the war was over, I came back and I went to Southall, the unemployment office. Said, well, you can teach school. I was a principal at 2 rural schools. Then I taught the rest of the year I taught at Roland, I taught at Sallisaw. This is my father's original allotment. I was born and raised here. When I married my husband after the war, we came back here and lived. We had cattle all the time. I've always had cattle ever since I've been born. We started a cow herd, and then we got into the horse breeding and horse racing. I used to run the barrel races, and we'd go on trail rides. I never did go on very many long trail rides, but we would. And my husband and I just rode our horses together lots here. He was riding still at 89 years old. My husband and I helped start Blue Ribbon Downs at Sallisaw, first parimutuel racetrack in Oklahoma. We'd have match races and side betting. At the beginning, all of our pay was he'd take us to the cafe and eat. We was all volunteers. I wanted to start a museum. Well, we had the old Judge Faulkner cabin. The Chamber of Commerce had moved in to celebrate our 50th state anniversary. They just abandoned it, it's all dilapidated, and I said, we could get that and start a museum. So my husband co-founded the 14 Flags Heritage Club. Named it 14 Flags Heritage Club because there's 14 flags flown over Oklahoma from the different states from the Louisiana Purchase line.
After 40 years of teaching school and helping to build up the town of Sallisaw, Echo remains a pillar in the Miller Ridge community. At 97, she is still living and ranching on her father's original Cherokee allotment, where she was born and raised. Cherokee Nation citizen Joshua Wheeler grew up in Muldrow, Oklahoma, the eldest of 5 siblings. He went on to join the Army, became an Army Ranger, was a veteran of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and a member of the Army's secretive counterterrorism unit, Delta Force. On October 22, 2015, Delta Force carried out a raid on a militant-run prison in Iraq. The raid freed 70 prisoners who officials say would have been executed the next day. Wheeler was killed by small arms fire.
We now know the identity of the American soldier killed in Iraq this week, the first to fall in battle there in 4 years and the first ever to be killed in direct combat with ISIS.
Joshua Wheeler, the elite Delta Force Master Sergeant, sacrificed his life to save others. A leader in the war on terror, Wheeler was also a leader on the home front. The husband, father, and son from Roland, Oklahoma was known for being especially giving and for putting others' needs before his own. During his 20 years in the Army, Wheeler was deployed at least 17 times and was the recipient of 11 Bronze Stars, 4 of them for valor. Posthumously, the U.S. Armed Forces awarded him with the Purple Heart and the Silver Star, and the Cherokee Nation awarded him with the Medal of Patriotism. Sergeant Wheeler's family says he was always proud of his Cherokee heritage. The medal was presented to his grandparents and brother Zach in July of 2016. Each year, our tribe sends a group of Cherokee veterans to Washington, D.C. to tour the museums and monuments built in their honor. It's called the Warrior Flight. Last year, osiyoTV captured that trip of a lifetime for a group of World War II and Korean War veterans. And we learned about one veteran's personal experience losing a loved one to the war. You can find those stories on osiyo.tv under segments and then Warrior Flight.
Let's talk Cherokee. November. Thanksgiving Day is on November. Ali helisti iga nayu na tategwa kotla ke soi. Ali helisti iga nayu na tategwa kotla ke soi. Turkey. Gana. Turkey is good to eat. Gana. Osta. Gahiesti. Gana. Osta. Gahiesti.
With Christmas just around the corner, we want to introduce you to a different kind of hero, a holiday hero. Buddy Stacy considers himself one of Santa's helpers. We spent an evening in Buddy's workshop as he made toys for boys and girls across the Cherokee Nation.
Christmas has always been my favorite time of the year, as long as I can remember, and working with wood has always been a passion. When you can marry the two things that you love and somebody is helped in the process, why not? My name is Buddy Stacy, and I run Santa's workshop here in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, that builds toys for disadvantaged children in the area. I've been working with wood as long as I could pick up a piece of wood. Wherever I could turn on a power tool, I was making sawdust. I've always loved the creative method, being able to make something out of just a raw piece of material. Something I've always loved to do. I have been wanting a home workshop, wood workshop, for as long as I've been married. Finally, last summer, I was able to assemble everything into an actual workshop area and start making stuff. But then I needed projects. And then the idea came that I could make Christmas toys, and it just went from there.
Here's your presents, Lance.
For me, the wooden toys comes about, first of all, my love of wood, my love of making things. But also it's just the idea that, you know, the belief in Santa Claus and his workshop and the fact that he made wooden toys from a nostalgia viewpoint. You imagine the elves working on the toys, you imagine Santa, you know, overseeing everything and getting ready for delivery on Christmas morning. That's just the direction that I was trying to go. This is what I call the car. This is my truck pattern. This is my bus pattern. These will actually create one set of toys, 3 pieces. Of course, the duck pattern. All of these will be on wheels. This is my boat pattern. I'll have a wheelhouse on top. Take the pattern and trace the outline of the pattern onto the block of wood. I'll then take that over to the saw, cut everything out. This is just one way that I'll use old scrap wood that I have for the toys, so that I don't have to, you know, spend a lot of money. It's a good way to use up what I've got. Those are ready to be cut and drilled. The wood, I do buy when I need to. If people have wood and they don't need it, they ask me if I need it, I'm always willing to take it because I can find something to do with it. Christmas is a time to help. Christmas is a time to show love. That's why I call it Santa's Workshop, because it's supposed to reflect the North Pole and what Santa does. Of course, there are people who have been there from the beginning that have been very integral to this. I use volunteers for sanding, painting, decorating. I also will have a lot of store-bought items that will be packaged with the wooden toys. There'll be some bears and books and balls and things of that nature. So all of that's going to have to be packaged together, and I'll depend on volunteer help for that as well.
Since time immemorial, Cherokees have always felt the spirit to give back to the community, to give back to others who are less fortunate than they were, sharing food, sharing clothing, helping people out when they've lost a loved one, those kinds of things. And today within the Cherokee Nation, that spirit is very much alive, especially through projects like the Santa's Project with Buddy Stacy. No one asked him to do this. No one came up with the idea and shared it and said, hey, let's try this. Buddy came up with this himself. He's the one who decided to give back to his community like his ancestors have since time immemorial. It's very comforting to know that the spirit of giving and taking care of our community, despite knowing them or not knowing them, is still alive and well within the Cherokee Nation.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Fine. Nikki Baker Lockwood.
Buddy Stacy. Buddy Stacy, good to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Buddy. So if you'll follow me, this will be where we put them and where they'll come and pick them up.
Okay. I believe that believing in Santa is important because it's actually, in our family, believing in Santa is believing in the spirit of Christmas. The more I can help, the more people know about this, the better it's going to make me feel, knowing that I'm hopefully making a difference to somebody. And that's kind of, everybody wants to make a difference. Everybody wants to leave their mark. And this is kind of my hope for making that for myself.
The toys in Buddy's story were donated to the Cherokee Nation Angel Project last year. And once again this year, the project is looking for people to adopt angels off our tree. Each pink tag on the tree represents a Cherokee child living within the tribe's 14-county jurisdiction. People can pick a child and donate clothing, toys, and other gifts so they won't go without this Christmas. More than 1,700 children received holiday gifts through the program last year. If you would like to learn more about the Angel Project, or if you don't live near Tahlequah and would like to donate, go to osiyo.tv, click on links mentioned, and look for a link to the Angel Project. The Cherokee Nation is in the process of buying the historic home of Sequoyah, the legendary statesman and inventor of the Cherokee syllabary. Sequoyah's cabin near Sallisaw, Oklahoma is currently owned and operated by the Oklahoma Historical Society and is a popular tourist attraction in Sequoyah County. The Historical Society is an Oklahoma state agency, and because of state budget cuts, it no longer has the resources to manage and maintain the property. Tribal leaders say with the purchase of Sequoyah's cabin, the Cherokee Nation is once again stepping in to keep public use facilities open when they may have otherwise been closed. The Cherokee Nation donated $750,000 to Delaware County to replace a highly traveled and severely damaged bridge there. The Whitewater Creek Bridge was closed after major flooding caused irreparable damage in December of 2015. In addition to safer travel conditions, the new bridge will allow for quicker response times for emergency services and faster bus routes for local schools. The $761,000 donation provided by the tribe will cover 80% of the project's cost. The county will cover the remaining 20%. For more news about the nation, visit anadisco.com or go to osiyo.tv and click on links mentioned. We hope you enjoyed our show. If you'd like to learn more about Cherokee Nation veterans issues, we've provided a link at our website, osiyo.tv. And while you're there, be sure to watch entire episodes and share your favorite stories online. There is no Cherokee word for goodbye. We say, Donadago ha'i. We'll see each other again. So until next time, wado. Active teens are happy teens, so don't let sports injuries or illnesses sideline them. Tribal health benefits only cover so much, so get your teen insured with CHIP. CHIP is an additional free or low-cost insurance designed to keep your teenagers healthy. Contact Indian Healthcare Resource Center in Tulsa or visit osiyo.tv and click on links mentioned for more info.